Hi, everyone. This presentation will be on free options for legal research. We're going to focus on alternative places to find case law, statutes, and regulations. While you're still a student and for a certain amount of time after graduating, you don't really have to worry about the cost of paid-for databases because you can access them for free. The three you probably use the most are Lexis, Bloomberg, and Westlaw. Currently, Lexis cuts off access sometime around the bar exam. Bloomberg lasts slightly longer, giving you access for 6 months after you graduate, and Westlaw allows access for 18 months after graduation. However, usage is capped at 60 hours per month. Although it may not sound like much, 60 hours is a lot of time, especially once you get better at research and begin to use alternative resources. As the subscriptions through law school expire, you will have to consider the cost of research, which is when free resources come in handy. When starting research, there are a few things to keep in mind. Remember the acronym JUST ASK to guide your research. Keeping this in mind will ensure you don't get off topic. First, know what jurisdiction you are in. You don't want to be doing Florida research, but find yourself in California resources. Secondly, go to colleagues for useful tips. They may know of a specific useful resource if they have worked on the same or similar topic. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. Third, know the scope of your issue. You don't want to be too broad or narrow at the beginning of your research. Fourth and fifth, determine any terms of art and acronyms based on your issue. Having these on hand will ensure you have a starting place once you start your research. Once you know all of this, you can figure out key sources. Finally, you should consider any cost restraints. Different databases have different costs, offer different services, and have different plans. Know what plan or plans your firm has and whether you can go outside of it. Starting research with secondary sources can help provide context and direct you to the most authoritative primary source. The secondary sources in this presentation will be research guides, online legal dictionaries and encyclopedias, Google Scholar, and online journals. It will also cover various sources for case law, legislation, and regulations. Research guides, in my opinion, are one of the best places to begin research. The guides shown here are just some of those offered by the Research Center. They provide an introduction to a variety of different topics, and each guide has links to relevant books, websites, and journals. As an example, this is just the introduction page of the Commonwealth Caribbean Law Research Guide. With the exception of resources that require an FSU account, anyone should be able to access anything on it. In addition to these FSU account resources, it has books, links to other research guides, and free resources. If you can't access the Research Center to check out a book, that's okay. A law library near you likely has a copy or a way of getting their hands on it. While the FSU Research Center has a ton of different guides, keep in mind that other schools and the Library of Congress create guides too, so glancing through a couple of those can give you more resources. To get to another school's research guide, just go to Google and search for whatever your topic is with research guide added to the end. This is just an example of other immigration law research guides available. Westlaw gives you access to the most recent edition of Black's Law Dictionary, but the Law.com dictionary defines terms according to the People's Law Dictionary, which is also considered authoritative. You can search by word or phrase, find all definitions that include a specific term, or browse by the first letter of a word or phrase. If you really want access to Black's Law Dictionary, you can use the Law Dictionary. However, know that this is only the second edition, and the current edition is the 11th. WEX is a legal encyclopedia that doubles as a legal dictionary. It is part of the Legal Information Institute, which was created and run by Cornell Law School. Legal academics and practitioners create, define, and edit its terms. Everything in the Legal Information Institute is connected, So if you search for a particular term, you get related terms and pages. Alternatively, you can go to the Legal Resources section of the home page and choose from legal topics like business law, criminal law, money and finances, and more. There is also a Learn About section, which covers topics like administrative law, constitutional law, corporations, legislation, and more. Like Wix, Justia is both a legal dictionary and an encyclopedia. On the encyclopedia side of the website, it has legal guides on topics such as family law, criminal law, intellectual property, immigration, and more. It also has legal news, some 50 state surveys, and primary materials like cases and state and federal laws. If you scroll to the bottom, under law schools, there's a link to the dictionary part of the website. Similar to the law.com dictionary, Justia allows you to search for a term by browsing by the first letter of a word or phrase, or searching for a definition that includes a specific term. Journals can be accessed through a ton of different places. Google Scholar probably has the largest collection of articles because it pulls them from different websites and places them in one place. However, it isn't perfect. Sometimes you will only get the abstract of an article, or it will just miss the article completely. The SSRN Legal Scholarship Network is also useful, especially if you want to narrow your search by subject area. However, like Google Scholar, sometimes it only gives you the abstract. Finally, the Law Review Commons is useful, particularly because you can narrow down to a specific school and then one of those schools' journals. These articles are fully available for download. A plain old Google search can be helpful when you only get the abstract. Other websites, like academia.com, may have the full article available for download. You can also look at the citation to see what journal it was published in. They may have uploaded it online through their own website. I wouldn't spend a lot of time digging around on Google, but keep in mind that information like your past search history and location will affect what Google prompts as relevant. Once you've reviewed the secondary materials, it's time to move on to primary materials. A few really good case law websites are the Harvard School of Law Case Law Access Project, Court Listener, Google Scholar, and court websites. The Harvard School of Law Case Law Access Project spans 360 years of U.S. case law and covers nearly 7 million cases over 612 reporters. When on their site, you select the state, the reporter, and volume, and then the case. A couple of downsides to this option is the fact that it isn't completely current. For example, Florida cases only go until 1991, and when we might be used to Shepard's or Keysight, the Harvard Access Project only gives the text of the case. When using Google Scholar, make sure you have case law selected. The default setting is articles, so if you search a term or a case name without selecting case law, you will get vastly different results. Like the Harvard Access Project, Google Scholar gives you the case text. However, unlike the Harvard Access Project, Google Scholar has cases as recent as this year. And when a case is cited in the opinion, it links to the cited case. It also has a how cited and cited by option. When searching for case law, you can make sure you're in the correct jurisdiction by selecting the relevant court before entering your search terms. Alternatively, you can enter your search terms and then use the filter on the left-hand side of the page to select the correct jurisdiction. Court Listener is a database of information gathered using the Recap extension based on the PACER database. PACER has court filings like complaints and dockets. A PACER user accumulates charges based on the amount and type of information accessed. However, they aren't actually billed unless the charges exceed $30 per quarter. The Recap extension works so that when someone with PACER and Recap purchases a document, it is added to the Recap archive. This way, people who can't afford PACER can afford the same documents without having to pay for them. The Recap archive is then compiled on the Court Listener website and turned into a searchable database. Court Listener is similar to Google Scholar in that it has a cited by and authorities option. But it stands out from Google Scholar in a few ways. First, it has court filings such as complaints and dockets. That is because whereas Google Scholar pulls cases from publicly available websites, Pacer has court filings and works with Recap to make them available on Court Listener. Second, it has oral arguments available. You should note, however, that these only go back as far as 2013. Finally, it has its own version of RavelView for Supreme Court cases. These citation networks are created and shared by Court Listener users, but can be helpful if you want to detangle lines of precedent. Finally, court websites are a source for case law. However, while they will provide the text of the case, other facets may be different. For example, in Florida, you can find all Florida Supreme Court and DCA opinions on the Florida Supreme Court website. However, in Georgia, there are two separate websites, one for Supreme Court opinions and one for Court of Appeal opinions. The requirements for searching are also different. All Supreme Court and DCA opinions from 1999 to the present day are automatically listed in Florida. For the Georgia Court of Appeals, you have to know the date range of the case. From a federal perspective, if you're looking for legislation, committee reports, congressional records, nominations, Senate or House communications, or treaty documents, you'll want to go to congress.gov. This website is run by the Library of Congress and can search for documents from the 6th to the current Congress. However, materials before the 93rd Congress are less complete than those after the 93rd Congress. When you search for a particular piece of legislation, you get a summary of the text, all actions it went through, and the date, alternative titles, amendments, co-sponsors, committees, and related bills. You can search by citation, title, committee, sponsor, or co-sponsor. GovInfo differs from Congress.gov in slight but important ways. First, its collection is more expansive than Congress.gov's. Whereas Congress.gov is limited to the above-mentioned documents, GovInfo has all of that and more. Included in this are judicial publications, regulatory information, and directories of organizations and officials. Second, there are many more ways to get to the document you're looking for. In addition to the ways you can search by Congress.gov, you can also search by category or alphabetically. Finally, GovInfo has a document and context option, which gives you related documents to the one you are viewing. Working in Florida, you will probably need to access state bills and statutes. The Florida Senate website and Online Sunshine are two of the best places to get this information. Going back as far as 1998, you can use the Florida website to see the various actions, related bills, bill text, amendments, analysis, voting history, and citations. You can also use the Florida Senate website to track bills, committees, senators, publications, press releases, and more. Both the Florida Senate website and Online Sunshine have Florida statutes from 1997 to the present. Both also link to the Laws of Florida, which is provided by the State Library and Archives of Florida. This site has territorial laws from 1822 to 1845 and the Laws of Florida from 1845 to the present. The FSU Research Center has a digitized legal collection of older Florida materials. It includes Supreme Court briefs and opinions, statutes, summaries of general legislation, and legislative documents. It also links to the previously mentioned territorial laws and laws of Florida. This same page also has human rights documents, the International Boundary Study Series, and the ABA Administrative Procedure Database Archive. The Florida Department of State publishes the FAC and the FAR online. While the website is extremely old and ugly looking, it is up to date. The FAC is updated weekly and is the official compilation of administrative rules in Florida. The FAR is the daily publication on the status of rules in Florida, including proposed rules, emergency rules, notices, corrections, and withdrawals. Regulations.gov is a source of information on the development of federal regulations. In addition to finding and commenting on proposed regulations, you can also find final regulations, notices, scientific and technical findings guidances, adjudications, and comments submitted by agencies. Type a word or phrase into the search bar to find a particular regulations. From there, you can view all documents, dockets, or comments related to your search term and filter accordingly. The Legal Information Institute is a go-to website for work outside of Florida. If you scroll down to primary sources and select state law, you can then click on listing by jurisdiction. Choose the state you want, say Kansas, for example, and you will have links to legislation, court opinions, rules of the court, regulations, agencies, and more. This page hyperlinks to all of the websites I've mentioned in this presentation. You can also find them by just Googling the site name. Remember, although you won't always have unlimited access to paid databases, getting familiar with other resources now will be extremely helpful. Remember the Just Ask acronym so you know the parameters of your research. Start with secondary sources like research guides, journals, and encyclopedias. The research guides may link to other free resources specific to your topic and not mentioned in this presentation. When moving on to primary sources, know what you're looking for so you know the best place to go. You have to think a little more when using alternative resources, but it becomes second nature once you get a little more practice. You can always email studentref@law.edu also if you have any questions.